delay when using. All right, 404, you are live.
All right, thank you. So welcome everyone to the monthly meeting of the Alianza City of Alianza Airport Commission. Gary, could you please roll call?
Yeah. Chair Cammerby,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shields,
Aye.
Commissioner Nissen.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Here. And so we'll move into correspondence. Did we receive any correspondence?
No correspondence.
All business project updates. Who would like to start? I talked with Turtle about yesterday about most important to talk about AWACS. I have some information here too on I believe it's page 4 that shows the location of where the AWACS is going. Thank you. Sure.
No, if there's not enough, I'll get one later.
Yeah, no, really.
Okay.
So if you look at the hangar up here, it's going to the runway. He mentioned that it's almost done with the permits, and late summer it will be going out to bid. Late summer. And then in the fall, looking to cut the trees to clear the area to put that in. And then maybe in the November time frame, it's all depending, of course, start building it. So potentially it could still be this year that it starts to be built. I don't know, do you have any other information about it or Gary?
I haven't. Yes. No, I do not.
I spoke to him last Tuesday.
I think it would be good. I think it would be nice to see some moment there.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for a long time and we have the ground, we have the funding. So let's keep moving and then what progress. Some interesting items on the diagram. I apologize, it's kind of small. I can send it on version 2. Is that the staging area will be on this side close to the flagpole. And it looks like there will be a trench to the side across the runway for electricity. And that's really all the information I have. Any questions? And then we also talked about the fuel farm. The problem there is that the grant is relatively old. So what we received the grant for to what we're trying to do, it's hard. We wanted to have both of the fuel tanks moved out here, but that is not possible. So he is at this point looking at what's called a current turnkey system on a concrete pad. That would only be jet fuel, but it would be a larger tank. He wasn't sure if it was 10 or 12,000 gallons.
So
Mike, what are we looking at? The 12. Because you want expansion. Is it going to bring down just over 10, wasn't it? Yeah, we're going to bring it down just over 10.
That makes sense. So he did mention that the system he's looking at will have Grist in it. From talking to people here and some of the pilots, some of them want to have Grist all the time, just because it's their procedure. I didn't ask him about the single point system, but I did talk to some of the pilots here who didn't get fuel and said, what would you like to see? And they said single points make it easier.
I haven't seen any pictures of what it might look like, but I'm curious if I'm aware that at Betty All's off of I-88 in Montego, across the street at Betty Beavers, they've got some skids. It looks like, are we in that neighborhood? Because I thought that we should just take one of them. And be done with it. You got a truck, right?
Sure. I think that's bigger.
Oh, okay.
I think I get in front of the semi and do it that way.
Well, thanks. No, I was just curious about that. That's a clean looking.
then we'll just aesthetically put fence out between the view of from any gauge perspective.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What are you saying, just jet now? We're not doing anything with that gas?
No, we don't have enough money. But then when you look at the numbers and you're gonna.
Oh, yeah.
look at the numbers. That's what we're selling. The more charter aircraft that we go after, the more jet we're gonna sell. So the fact that we get it to quarter ball in full load rather than a partial load.
Yeah, it is maybe what we set out to do, but it is better than doing nothing, and we could still then ask for the second phase for having the other 10 go out to the 2, like, the funding.
And I requested to go back to all of these effectively.
If I receive any drawings, I will forward them to you. I was under the impression that it was too premature to look at that.
Probably, I just wanted to kind of an overview in my mind of what, now I have that, so thank you, Martin.
And then the other update is, of course, the parallel taxiway that was voted on by the Common Council and not approved. So at this point, we need to look at that and see what we will be doing moving forward. If we're going to relook at that in 2024, I don't know, then if you have any update on that.
Yeah, so I spoke with the FAA representative that night, Tuesday. And, you know, had to give him the disappointing news. And he agreed with me that being proactive with the next council come January is the smartest way of doing this. Rather than what was done this way. So if elected, you know, for elections, so if elected, how she does I'll be proactive with the new council members. Just showing them, getting them up here individually, showing them what we've done, what our historical point of view, what we're doing today, and what's the vision. And getting them on board. And then Otsego Now CEO is applying for that ESD grant now. And so that grant is actually taking care of our 5%. That would be used, that would be great. So it really becomes a no-brainer if that's what happens, if that's truly what happens.
So from the council, the discussion was tabled in that.
It was tabled, what they did was tabled the environmental review, which had a direct effect on the actual motion for the finance. So yes, it was about a half a year behind, kind of look at it, right? So the package is ready. And so if the ESD were applying now, I got to follow. Okay. And we're one step ahead, get the new council on board, make the application sometime next year. So obviously, they're going to do good. Actually, very good is in this last with that.
I also think it's important that as a commission, we have the same vision as them, that we all work together, get a common vision, and start promoting that within the Common Council and the whole city of Oneonta. I personally think that we need to take some time to get together outside of this meeting to go through those ideas, see what we can do, what's the sequencing.
I think sequencing is a good point. I think that's where the council kind of got lost. They didn't understand why the FAA was saying you got to put the taxi. So you have to invest in the taxi because some of them with limited information or ideas that they have about the airport. So they think that we're so limited in air traffic that there's no way you would ever have a situation for one aircraft. Sure, once they have a crystal ball. That's the truth. So risk management, I think that's what we're doing, is saying to avoid risk calculations. We're putting in a taxiway, then we'll extend the runway. Move it. So to your point, yes, the vision should be shared by all.
And you can follow up on that. We're talking about like, thank you.
We're talking about a full taxi, it's a full taxiway. Phase one was actually all the way down to 2-4. But it gave us that service. Which opens us up to the 10+ acres per year. Which the FAA is already guaranteed as part of that program, is to put the tarmac in. Treaties, in the lease agreements, for those that want.
I think before we do the second part, we need to understand like what happens to the acres. What are we going to do? The way that the taxiway will run, it's too high. I don't believe it's feasible to lower roads from those hangars out to the taxi. So we need to figure out what are we going to do. I think that's an important topic.
So, right, and remember that you have an AWAS being moved. And so that opens up real estate out here, so that is an opportunity for private hangar. Folks, we've experienced before where there was a jump that came in, this project was 6 years ago, 5 years ago. That was $750 to $1 million. That's a high project. So we might want to live in that real estate. And then with the AWAS gone, if we were to move the road forward or the boundary, just by opening that arch gives us at least 4, maybe 5. Those are options.
So to that end, would you agree that we should have a working session? We just run through all of those different ideas, say what it is, what it is, how we're going to pay for it. And because in the end, we'll get to the role of the airport. I believe it's our role to be aligned, to promote it, but then also make a recommendation to the common council, like we would like to move forward. So maybe I'm jumping ahead. There's another item there.
With that, I'm maybe overly cautious about common voices. But I agree with what you're saying. I think I hear sometimes, I hear you saying that the message that is sent to the public at large is the same, consistent. It's not just, well, I think this would be neat or that, no, we're on the same page. Yeah.
In my mind, we need to have a session where we get together, run through all our ideas, and try to poke holes in it to build it up together. So that once we have the document, whenever anyone asks a question about it, this is what we're trying to do, this is why we're doing this, this is how to. I think that is step one of success. Okay. There is an item here for work detail. Would that be part of our work detail? Brainstorming session. Then it has a lot of information. I have some information. Matt, you have a very good perspective on it, and you've been here for a long time.
I just have questions. I don't have information. Now I have a shirt, so I'm more motivated.
We can wear our shirts.
Nobody told them, it's actually small. I look more like a
Hey.
So to round up the old business project updates, we've talked about the AWAS relocation. We talked about the fuel farm upgrade, the parallel taxiway. Briefly was mentioned on the runway extension. I think that to me seems to be the final goal. so we can have bigger airplanes here. Is there anything else we should talk about as far as, budget?
I would like to clarify that. So we're not looking for the bigger aircraft. We're looking for more aircraft of the charter line. Because that's what we're seeing. That's what Mike is working with is charter aircraft. I mean,
How would we define the capacity of a typical charter here?
what can land today is what we're promoting. We want more of that. And to get that, we need the taxiway and the runway extension. So the number is 5,000. We have 4,200 lineal feet.
So that's what.
We need to get to 5,000.
Right.
We need 800 lineal feet.
That opens many doors.
Correct. And by having it grooved, also takes and eases their math calculations.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the aircraft are restricted by the insurance companies as to where they can and cannot operate. Doesn't mean the aircraft can't land here or take off, but it's at their risk and weather comes into play, so. Basically, if you get, like he said, for a calculation, so to speak, you've got the runway length, you've got all the infrastructure in place, so. Covered from an insurance standpoint.
By doing that opens what I think is going to be the floodgates. Because Mike has been explaining to me, different folks that are coming up, and they're taking a look, but we're not ready to take them on. We don't have the ability to open up land for them. So we should take advantage of the time that we have. Let's just keep promoting that. I don't think it'll take long. I really don't. I don't think it'll take long to fill up that space accountable.
That's encouraging.
And, you know, Representative Dan Wilbur, on the board, he just retired New York State DOT. He's the one that organized it. There's a lot of potential south of us. For folks that they're looking for a safe place for their aircraft to be stored. There's folks that have that aircraft that brought to them, so they don't generally care who's going to go get it. But that type of activity, people flying back and forth, we're just going to sell them fuel.
So when you say south, what?
3 hours south.
Okay.
4 hours south.
Right. So we're in the city.
Those folks are used to paying 14,000 or more for hangar space. We get 250.
250?
Yeah, that's our top number.
And why wouldn't they come here?
So even, right, so even if you're doing land leases, right, this is where in the team's suggestion of a work group is that you guys need to really seriously think as a commission, do we want to recommend every council to build hangars because of the potential? Maybe one hangar could be built by the city and make it, right? I mean, a good example is last year, we missed out on the opportunity to rent this main hangar for helicopters, for the folks that were doing the line checks. We just, because we already have a tank. But if you have that type of space, Mike came up with an idea of if we build another one of these hangars, keep the end of it wide open. So then private aircraft, maybe 2 helicopters or a jet can be backed into it. And then so that's from Mike's experience. So those are opportunities that you guys flush out and see. So because that's a lot. As we go this and build, the cost of it will be 2.5 times. Sometimes you better options.
Say that, when you say that again, sorry.
Because of Davis Bacon.
Okay.
And you know that is right. Because of Davis Bacon, if the municipality was to start building a hangar, it would cost 2.5 times property.
That's what.
So, you know, if our end game is to have this hangar space, rentals, and solid fuel and tie-ins. For me, my goal, I know that's what was Dennis, is to get the first passion housing. Well, the data, there is a goal to Shows that we're there. Mike has been working very hard the last couple of years. Getting our rentals, keeping 95% of the door occupied. Diligent with fuel sales. When we first took over, there's times when people who have money here have to call out of the city to say, hey, I'm here.
Really awkward. Anything else about our epic updates? So, new business. I added a number of items. So, which is relatively, the first one is the airport detail. I believe that we have quite a lot of things that we should be doing. One of those is discussing what we should do and getting on the same page. So, another thing I believe we need to do is review the uses of hangars and fee schedule. I think we should review fuel sales and understand, like, get a better sense for what's all the money coming in, where is it going from, what are the opportunities. I think all of those things take time. And I would like to have one meeting where we have our airport commission meeting, and then just a work detail where we can talk about these things. Maybe even at some point, walk the runway if we choose to make sure it's not a real runway, or at least develop these SOGs that state like how often should that happen, but become more active. You got it.
Yeah, then reasonable time constraints.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to be. Sky.
Is there such a thing?
I think it's very important. One of the proposals could be that we meet every third Wednesday of the month. Would we take 4 o'clock at the first Wednesday of the month and get together to do that? Same time, same day, it's 2 weeks from the apart.
I think it's a great idea. I think we need to start somewhere and just try and see if we're finding it.
That work for you.
It does. For now. It would.
And it's not a, we have a lot of busy lives. We can't make every one of them, but it's a start.
So you're thinking the first one's like.
Yeah, just to space it out and make it still kind of regular, first and third Wednesday, 4 o'clock, so it's the same times. Keep it easy. I'll try to bring baked goods and that's on now too, but I'll try to bring baked goods. Yeah, maybe not every meeting or every.
So these are in person, for in person or Zoom meetings.
It would be just in person, us together. Is that something that we just agree, or should there be a motion for it? I'm not.
Can agree to do it. Any other questions? So last time we talked, we also talked about the role of the airport commission. And maybe we weren't all aware of what our duties are. So I got printed out from the top, the what's available, what the airport commission does. I don't really think I should go through it word by word, so you have a copy. If you could read it at the next meeting, we can add an agenda item where we go. My takeaway is that our role is to provide recommendations to the council for a variety of items, including it mentions fee schedule. So it's one of those things we should, I believe it hasn't changed in a long time. I'm not sure how we're going to change that yet, but maybe at one of our work details, we can talk about that, review it, maybe do some competitive research,
and see what would be reasonable, to keep it at the same amount or slightly increase it. Just checking, make sure, or should we make sure that we're fair to both people renting the hangars and what is the. You know, of the role of the airport commission, or should we?
I think that's good. Gives you an opportunity to review it. We should have.
Memory day. I believe we need more commissioners. From reading the code, we can have 5 to 7 commissioners. So we have 2 to 4 openings at this point. Does anybody have any suggestion for somebody who would be interested? Could we start approaching people? I believe the requirement is that they live in the city of Alianza.
We're allowed to have one non-resident.
And is that currently filled or
Nope.
not?
I think that at one point, the esteemed mayor was advertising for interested people.
We have, I mean, I can't tell you the number of meetings that both Councilmember Carson and, I mean, we made public appeals even on the broadcasted meetings through the Daily Star, like, and
Any takers or
we're not getting interest. We had one potential candidate who would have been phenomenal. They were going to follow up with their employer to see if there would be a conflict, and I never heard from them again. So considering that person is usually pretty communicative, I'm thinking that they discovered there was a conflict. But I can follow up with them.
I may have a person too who has flown on this airport, who's very interested in it, is interested in building a flight school here. So he's a pilot and instructor. I think that brings a lot of credibility to the commission. So I will ask him.
You, if he took it, you'd be fine that role, one outside.
He does get outside. Anything else on membership? Political representative visits. At one point, we were having a visit from a politician, but that fell through. Is there any update? Will that happen again?
was that Molinaro?
Yeah, he's looking at August.
That's what yeah, so that's,
I don't have a date on it. We walked on July 4th. We visited that.
That's great.
are there strategies and none that I know of, and others may not want to comment, but are there any strategies in place to encourage Colorado to work in certain directions for us, or it's just whatever he can do, we can do?
Yeah, one of the communities that he's on is transportation. So I think that would be and is really helping us look at the vision where we go and then being able to allocate. So like next year, going for phase 1, because important to have that advocacy, that agency.
So I'm guessing as you look, we're not shy about asking for help, money, things. Yeah, good.
And I would just probably suggest. Get the acclimated, but also having these points for line. We need to generate lines. And 50th, that was well received.
One,
It would be
we give them some time. You know, one has had people that come in that, you know, might be able to do all of this, like logistics. You know, that's the one how the communities.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a lot of work, so the more people we can have help, the better it is. Next item, maintenance. There's one thing I'm very passionate about, is fire extinguishers. And today there was some great news, from Gary, I can elaborate on that.
Thanks. So we've been working, as you know, for quite some time to get representatives up here to kind of verify the information that we already had through NFPA standards for what we're required to have, where we're required to have it, how many, things of that nature. So Oneonta's Assistant Fire Chief, Tim Foster, came up today, spent probably about 45 minutes up here. We're going to be working with an outside vendor to get pricing. I think we're looking at 14 to 15 BC extinguishers. 9 of them are going to be boxed outside. So it's moving forward. He also recommended on a separate topic, installing a Knox box because they've been doing more and more transports up here. The key that they have to access the property is in their gate at the station. So if they're already out, they're called up here, they don't have access. They have Mike's contact information. Mike's able to take care of that remotely, but for the sake of ease and timeliness, we're installing a Knox box that will allow Oneonta Fire access to the property.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And does that also, under maintenance, does that include the annual recharging of these extinguishers and
We would have to enter into a contract.
okay?
Yeah.
That's the vendor that you're talking about, yeah.
That's still in discussion. So Oneonta Fire Department does on city property, does our annual inspections, and I don't know how that applies with the property not being in the city. It's a city property, but in the town of Lawrence. So there will be some discussion as to making that happen, but they've been incredibly willing to work with us, so.
Thank you, Gary and Mike, for making progress. I mean, that's amazing. It's about safety, it's important. That's great.
It's very important. And I think and it's even sort of on the side, but it's also very important. The recent material that's been in the media about the what's that stuff called? You spray on fire, not water. Pump. Pump is very bad, and it bothers people's lungs. So that could be another dimension of protection for those that are working around it. Yeah. And of course, that raises, in my humble opinion, that raises the question of ongoing training. Now, that's not part of our agenda for today, but maybe it could be ongoing training. And is that anything for us, or is that some other entity that is working with training and that kind of thing?
As to like fire safety or the use of extinguishers, or
Not just
What kind of
not
training?
the whole thing, but yeah, the whole thing.
I know fire department's always willing to come up and do fire training. They'll do small fires in a pan and you
Sure. Oh, yeah.
work on putting them out. So I'm sure if you guys are interested in that, we can have them come up even to one of the work sessions and do a brief thing.
Yeah. It's just, in my humble opinion, it's something that's very easy to take for granted. Oh, yeah, I have. No,
Until you're doing it.
I can do a 5 walk down, I know about that. Walk the runway with that stuff. Look for wires. Yeah.
The other maintenance item I'd like to bring up is the beacon. Very good information on how the electricity from the outside is connected to the beacon. We also want to be there. This is for me a test about how we approach this situation. We find something, I believe that it's our duty to recommend maintenance. So do we recommend maintenance to the council, or do we recommend it to the airport manager? How? Does anybody have any insight? Maybe then you would probably the most experienced here, like how do we approach it?
But if it's a beacon recommendation for a reservation, is to go to the airport manager. She'll take it up through finance, she has a budget. Figure out how to pay for it. And then go to the council. Okay.
And are these nice to do things, Martijn, or are they need to do things?
What did you want to do with the beacon?
It would be fairly simple. There's a plate missing at the bottom. Where the electricity goes in, so the wires are hanging loose in it. So to me, there needs to be a plate attached to this area with a hole in it where the electricity goes in into a proper manner.
What kind of voltage is that? That regular?
If you-
Okay,
you-
I haven't, yeah. We have an electrician on our,
We can discuss.
yeah,
Because it seems to be fairly simple to fix, but it's would guarantee the beacon continue to operate.
Yep.
Seems like there's a small road that could fit in.
I thought maybe the beacon you were going to talk about the height. I wanted to wait, if you were going to talk about it, I wanted to wait until after we got the tree plan done for the bay loss. But if you go back to the drawing that we provided, you'll see where the beacon is located within the first city. So. I'd like to wait until. We see what kind of trees are left standing.
I think that makes sense.
The city might have some extra trees, given what I read in the Star today.
I don't want to put your houses.
They better not. I'd like to have them tear one down.
Anybody else have any items for maintenance? Any other comments?
When you say maintenance, Martijn, what are you referring to? Maintenance, building maintenance, equipment maintenance, or maintenance, all of it?
I think all of it. I think it's important that as commissioners, we look around here and we know the things that can be improved and start making recommendations for you. Part of that is avoiding scenarios where maintenance lags and we have to make large expense. I believe it's better to maintain. So some of these things may be small dollar items that could save us a lot of money on that.
Sure, that makes
So I
sense.
think that process would be is that each one of you as commissioners saw something and bring it to the next meeting, talk about it, discuss it. Give it to the airport manager, she'll look at the budget. So if it's in there, if it's not. It would probably be. Money that we're employee will take care of it if she gets approved. Generally, there's money. in the budget for those places. But if you want to buy bacon and all that.
Yes.
When, to go back just a bit, I wasn't aware that there was an entity called Friends of the Airport. Is that a fiduciary group that solicits funds or can take money in, collect funds, or what does it do? I don't.
They were basically laborers that took up a lot of the slack of logistics on the 50. Did they collect money? That's a good question, but they did. The donation don't actually go to the city anyways, and I know that there's a little bit of money left over, even from the polos, there's still a small amount of money left over. And that comes from the 50th. So. I guess they could solicit on behalf, but. You might want to get full clarity on that. So,
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily pushing in that direction. I'm just sort of curious. And
They're not a 501c3 if that's what you're asking.
I
No, they did not.
Yeah.
There's none that did.
I will contact them too and ask them if they have any information regarding that.
Okay. Well, we were talking about Friends of the Airport. I'm reminded of, it's Westville, is it Westford, the airport, or Westville?
Westville, I believe.
Westville. I've been up there several times on Saturday mornings, but it takes a lot of people to make eggs and pancakes. It really does. It's great, but I don't think that's this group.
Not,
No. Yeah,
it should be more of a think tank.
okay.
They're kind of like, not to simplify, if anybody's watching, what they do is amazing. They're almost like a auxiliary for a fire department.
Should.
It is the fire department.
Oh, the fire department does it? Well, there you go.
Westfield Airport, we like able to let them use the facilities and then have it blind. We don't have the facilities to do that.
And I know the ladies auxiliary, they have a bake sale. I bought some of their baked items, so they're good. Right after breakfast, you're still hungry.
We think out pretty good with that, because when they're flying over there, they have that fuel, so they come here to get fuel to get back home.
Aha.
We do make out with it.
They seem to have a good time too.
Anything else? Promotion of the airport, I think that's an important category to talk about. Carrie and I have been talking about getting a vending machine in here, and that's a work in progress. I don't think we have any further update at this time, but that would be nice. Some of the pilots I talked to, their top priority was snacks. So having that here would be really nice. Also, when the drone pilot school is here, those students may like to take advantage of that. I think that's important.
If we got 2 vending machines, we would direct competition with Binghamton.
Really? Do they have a restaurant? Yeah.
They have a coffee thermos, help yourself, and 2 vending machines.
Get one machine that does.
There we go.
Well, maybe we'll start with one, and if it's a hit, we'll try to get a second one. If we saw that one for us.
You can also roll that way.
Yeah, I think promotion of the airport is very important. Another thing there is the flying school. I'm still working with Justin on that. It's a slow going process, but we're having fun with it and trying as much as we can in our spare time to see where we're taking it.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you have that.
It's slow going. It's like, like all of the regular jobs, and they love it.
Is the plane the major hurdle to get over for the pilot school?
I believe so. I think it's one of the many hurdles. Then, of course, it's time and availability. How many students could we take on? What would we do? There's some plans. There's some big plans, and there's some actionable items.
Said what, 172, 150,000. I don't know how much maintenance is required.
It's liable.
What does that mean? They'll go up at least once.
They say it's a great day, you can land the planes, a very good day, when you get back off the ground.
Okay, well, just kind of let us know this year, so that they can be looked at.
And then maybe next item, unless anybody else, anything about airport promotion. It's also something we can discuss during the board detail and budget out and see what we do. The last item is SOPs. We talked about that before. It's something I'm passionate about too, because it aligns with the culture of safety. And I think that's very important for the airports to provide safety for everyone, the aviators, people on the ground. So I would love to take part of our work details and start talking about like what do we need to do there? Are there templates available? I believe there are some templates, and so we don't have to do all the work. And understand what that looks like.
That's still something.
Yeah, I think previous is just an example of I can pull some. Take a look at it. See where it is, so.
Those were all of the items on the agenda. Carrie, do you have items?
I have a lot of paper for you to look at. So in front of you, you have a couple different items that had been prepared for distribution to the council that we thought you might want to take a look at, to have a better understanding. So there's a single piece of paper for airport fuel sales, April 2012 through May of 23. It breaks it down by average sale and gallons, and then there's a spreadsheet that's attached that has a lot more detail. You also have in front of you a copy of the debt summary for the airport as recently as December 31 of 2022. Our finance department is working on a more up-to-date, not more up-to-date, I apologize, a spreadsheet that shows information as recently as the end of June, but that hadn't been proved yet, so she wasn't comfortable releasing it yet. And then you also have some budget summaries from 2012 through 2022, the airport's history, revenues versus expenses. And then the last one is information on all of our capital projects since 2012. Where the funding source, whether it be state aid, federal aid, whether it was grant funded, that type of deal.
There's a lot of very good.
There's a lot of information in here. Yeah,
There will be a quiz next month.
absolutely.
But Jenny, she deserves a lot of credit. It's a great time.
She did.
Good for a lot, very, very. I love it, historical perspective, just going back.
And I think it's great to see that, in the past 2 years, positive conversation.
Yeah. I think you can find that out on that. It's hard. It's not just reading for the supposed to show up. It's phone calls, answers to calls.
I did have an encounter there when I was talking to a pilot. And I asked him, so what's important at an airport? And he goes like that guy over there,
Yeah.
that approached me with a smile. That was mine, so it was a great job. It makes a big difference to them. Great job. Do you have anything else?
That's all I've got for you for now.
Send this out, and I believe all that is left is motions.
Just like a reminder, speaking of baseball, be all board. I got one. That says Baseball Hall of Fame had zero information to verify, too much line in here, so it's gonna be one of those. Like version situation.
That's on the 23rd.
All weekend. Never knew it was gonna show up.
You know, we were up here last year and it was pretty exciting. Off and on.
Sunday, the induction, I think it's at 1:30, so they're usually back here by 4, trying to fly out. I got only one call.
Rain or shine.
Yeah, and it's the weather's iffy on Saturday, and Sunday's supposed to be decent.
Yeah, well, they're
Same way last year I didn't get any calls like Friday night. And that brings up the situation I'd like to ask you guys about, doing is the phone system right now. At the present moment, goes to voice. Bentley's not here some evenings, I believe. There's a wall in communication, if there's a plane, it's been here from. Could be a problem. Don't know what your guys' thoughts are on it.
Do you have a recommendation for us?
It could be changed to where my phone number is available. But I'm looking for probably some type of city. Involvement in it. City involvement. You are being used in person.
Actually, something.
Negative.
So
So let's get a cell phone.
it's sitting there.
Okay.
So one person.
I'd be okay with it moving person, also, home, which is presently offered out there, field farm and presently used on the door.
Publishing. A person. Which. Very specific.
Do you have any other
So before we pull our phone, when you're looking at that data. Did you notice that the cost hasn't gone down?
Yeah.
Might want to ask some questions.
I
Mike's
have,
had a lot of problems with this phone.
I have some answers for you, but they're offline answers.
I swear.
So,
Is it landline or something?
It's a land grab.
It's,
We were supposed to
So-
say it's just one mile.
it's a VoIP line is the,
Make a motion.
you don't have to make a motion. You can just simply indicate that the meeting is adjourned.
all right, then